Welcome on in. It's another episode of NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by our friends at Whelen Engineering. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, and trusted to perform. As always, HQ for MRN here in Concord, North Carolina. My name is Chris Wilner, MRN pit reporter. Kyle Rickey, MRN turn announcer out in Connecticut. K-Rick, you were stagnant out there in New England this weekend. I visited the Pacific Northwest, literally the opposite end of the country from where you were this weekend. But how was your weekend? We got a lot to talk about, a lot going on in short track racing. I know you were busy out at Stafford this weekend.
Well, it rained out, sadly.
Oh, never mind.
We tried, but it was 91 degrees and the storms built at, 3 o'clock as they usually do, and poured down on us right before practice. And a cold front came in. It hasn't warmed up since. We're like in the 60s. It's chilly. It's there's pollen in the air. We have smoke over us from the wildfires.
Did you get
Canada.
the Canadian fire smoke your way too? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a grand old time right now here in southern New England. But hopefully things improve and we're in for a good dry weekend here in a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, I had a heck of a weekend. Sunny and 75 out of Portland for ARCA West and NASCAR Xfinity. Then was just out at High Limit here actually today as we recorded this. I landed out from Nebraska for Kyle Larson's sprint car show. So good week of racing for me, but hopefully next week will be better for you guys with Mother Nature. Let's dive in because we have a lot to get to. Let's start off with Cars Tour at Langley. I think another big opportunity for a new name to shine. Opportunities aplenty for a lot of those drivers on the late model stock schedule this year has just been huge. What were your overall thoughts from that? Because I saw the lights went out too, which was scary because I think that weekend there was also a dirt track that had the lights go out for a modified race. So kind of a weird coincidence there, but what was your overall takeaway from Langley?
Yeah, you talk about the names shining. For a while there were no lights to shine those names on. I heard, and first off, it was weird. I wasn't watching live. I saw the highlights, but you put yourself in the driver's seat and you're, racing off into turn number one at, 95, 100 miles per hour and too wide racing and the lights go out. I heard the lights run a timer. They had extreme cloud cover. The lights were set to come on early and then they were set to go out for whatever reason at 10 o'clock. And they did. They went out at 10 o'clock and the race took a while to put the red flag out because I don't think the flagman could find the red light button on the starter stand because they were still green for a while, looking at some of the in-car cameras.
Scary.
But yeah, a bizarre incident there for the Cars Tour. They were down for a few minutes, but able to get the lights back up on and complete the event.
Yeah, wild. And it was kind of sparked a conversation in my head about anything weird that happened when I used to race. Now, granted, this was not relatively recent, but it ran quarter midgets and micros. And I had the caution and the red flag lights doing a little fluttering during one of my feature events. I think I was running the top 5 and it tripped everybody up. We all shut our cars off during the race. And luckily the field behind us that didn't quite get the memo didn't just bulldoze everybody over. But I've never had the lights go off at night. It's kind of an interesting strategy, right? If you have a 10 o'clock curfew, if there's cars on the racetrack, it's like the bar closed. Just shut them off. Boys, take them back to the pits. I don't know.
We're done.
Crazy stuff out there, but yeah, Cars Tour at Langley. How about Aaron Donnelly and Peyton Sellers out at South Boston? We talked about early in the year, Peyton Sellers, I guess, not living up to what we expect, right? Being the dominant car. He's kind of had some challenges early on in the year, but this time it was Aaron Donnelly that gave him a run for his money over the weekend.
Fantastic race from start to finish, especially in the closing laps. 75 lap event. I think it went caution free, maybe one early yellow, but back and forth in lap traffic. Donnelly was able to make the pass. I think coming to the white flag on Peyton, they were side by side throughout the last lap. I thought Peyton was going to, make contact in turn 3 and send him up the racetrack. He did not. Aaron stayed in it all the way to the start finish line, crashed the car going into turn number 1 because he had so much speed built up. But that was after the checkered flag and after he picked up his first win. He said in victory lane it had been a long time coming. So very emotional win, very excited young man following the race on Saturday night at South Boston.
Yeah, especially if you can beat one of the best at that racetrack in its history, 6-time track champion Peyton Sellers. So Peyton having some drivers giving him a run for his money here in 2023 as he goes for a national title. Other thing to note here before we talk ARCA, Tyler Matthews, a name we have not talked about at all, at least this year on this show, wins the 40-lap shootout out at Hickory, America's home for NASCAR superstars, as it's always dubbed, the future of NASCAR, that is. And Tyler Matthews gets a win out there on a really good night of racing at Hickory as well.
Took the lead late, or actually no, took the lead early, pulled away late from Cade Brown. I believe just 11 cars started, one caution flag. We had an engine expire early in the event, but he was the dominant car of the evening. It was a night that was supposed to have double features for the late models. Unfortunately, Mother Nature intervened, and in fact, I had a couple of delays during the course of the race. And then I believe it was one of the street stock events toward the end of the night. Mother Nature rained down and canceled that event, and also canceled the second race of the night. But for Tyler Matthews, he got an opportunity to shine in the spotlight and pick up the win. I guess the other big note, we talked about Annabeth Barnes a couple of weeks ago, and in her incident there at the racetrack, she was not in the field. I'm not sure if that was by choice or not, but she did not compete on Saturday night following her incident at the racetrack 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, interesting development, and we'll kind of keep tabs too. Obviously, Hickory for us down here in the Charlotte area, that's kind of in our backyard, so we'll keep note of that and see kind of what develops from that. But congratulations to Tyler Matthews. Okay, before we get our guest on, who is, by the way, the winner of the ARCA West race out at Portland, his first win of the season, Landen Lewis. Let's talk about that race, the Portland 112. Beautiful scenery out there in the Pacific Northwest, and for a change, no rain at all. I mean, the entire weekend was Chamber of Commerce weather, 70s, mid 70s, no humidity, sun, you weren't sweating. It was perfect. And for a lot of these ARCA West drivers, that was a new challenge, right? Because last year was all about just keeping your car on the racetrack. And today and over the weekend, you had to actually race it and figure out what you had underneath you. So, and of course, it didn't come out with some drama. We had some Xfinity Series drivers, Riley Herbst, Cole Custer entered as well. Parker Retzlaff was entered as well, the Jordan Anderson driver. But it was a battle of attrition. We couldn't really get a flow, right, Kyle? It was just like maybe a 5-lap run, caution, 5-lap run, caution. We had our break, lap 28, but it set up for a good run to the finish.
Yeah, there was a fire, I think, in there. One of the cars caught fire early in the event.
And where was the fire crew? They were standing there looking at it, up in flames. I didn't have a monitor because with the ARCA West teams, not many pit boxes have that capability to show the live feed. But, I mean, if you're standing on the front straightaway where I was on pit road, the smoke plume was almost like the Canadian fire that's visiting our area. I mean, it was insane, and apparently the response time wasn't great. So we'll have to follow up with that. But yeah, huge fire out of Dylan Lupton. He did get out. He was okay.
Yep, Dylan was okay. Halted the race though for quite a bit to get the fire extinguished, get the track cleaned up. I think there were 5 or 6 yellow flags in the event. So as you mentioned, tough to get a flow, but those final couple laps were pretty spectacular between Landen Lewis and Cole Custer, back and forth. Cole had the lead. Landen took it. Cole tried for better part of 2.5 laps to get the lead back. Parker Retzlaff joined the fun at the front of the field. Dale Quarterly, for the most part, quiet for much of the race, and ended up with a 3rd place finish when there were some off-track excursions, as there usually are on the final lap of a race in Portland. So overall, great race. Williams Wallace rounded out the top 4, and then you had Retzlaff in the top 5. So good event, good mixture of the West regulars, some road racing ringers, and the Xfinity Series pilots as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to William as well. He just absolutely destroyed the front end of his JGR Toyota at the start of that race, and went, I think, at least 1, maybe 2 laps down, if my memory serves me correct. Drove back up through the field with an ill-handling car. Forget about Aero, because the whole front end was gone, and he was able to drive back up to the top 5. Bradley Erickson also had a good run, one of the West regulars. All right, well, enough talking about it. Let's talk with our race winner coming up next on the flip side of the break. It is Landen Lewis, career win number 1 in the ARCA West Series, championship points leader after a string of second-place finishes. He broke the streak last weekend at Portland. We'll talk to him about it next.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back into NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering. As promised, joining us via Zoom on West Coast time, it is Landen Lewis. Picked up his first ARCA West win over the weekend at Portland in an absolute thriller. Landen, let's just start there, man. I'm sure you're still on the high after that big victory with Ron Hornaday down there in Victory Lane with you. The emotions that we talked in Victory Lane. Now that we're several days removed, take me back to the weekend that was, and your big win when you had to go up against a NASCAR Xfinity Series regular for the victory.
It was a really good weekend for everyone. You know, qualifying on the pole, got our second pole again this year, and then end up winning the race was just icing on top of the cake. And fighting off Cole Custer was just a really fun race and a hard race for sure.
How hard was that to do? Obviously a racetrack with a lot of different type of corners and one of the best behind the wheel right now in NASCAR's National Series, especially in the Xfinity Series. You took the lead with 3 to go, I think. And, he was right there within striking distance, the remaining of the event.
Yeah, we had a really good car. Starting off the race, we led for 15 laps, and then we ended up coming down pit road. Come to find out, pit road was closed, so that gave us a penalty where we had to start at the tail end of the longest line. So we had a challenge up ahead of us, and we're able to overcome that challenge, and we're running third with 6 to go. The caution come out. We were able to get up to second. Caution come out again, and then on that 3-lap shootout, I was able to take the lead, and then we got down to turn 1, and Cole got on my inside. I was able to cross him back over, and then ended up taking the lead and was just trying to hold him off. And then we were able to pull away right there at the end and able to conquer the win. But like you said, it was definitely a tough race, racing against, Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, a lot of big drivers. It was definitely tough, but a really, really fun race. And it was awesome to get to race against those guys.
Are you learning behind the wheel when you're out there on track with a Cole Custer or Riley Herbst? I mean, obviously there at the end, you kind of were tracking down Cole and then had the battle, for the win. But are you learning things about your racecraft as you study some of these guys that, moonlighted in the ARCA West Series this year?
Yeah, you can learn. I've had this question a lot, and I keep telling them it's really fun to race against those guys, and also really good for me because while I'm on the track, I can learn different little things they're doing, turning in at this point, getting on the gas at this point. So I can learn while I'm on the track, and it's just really cool to get to race against the guys that have really good experience. And when it comes to those 3-lap shootouts, I can kind of rely and know that the guy's going to race me really hard, but also really clean at the same time.
Was it hard to find a flow during the race? You talked about the late race cautions and picking the spots off during the late race yellows, but there were some early race yellows and a red flag. Was it just hard to find a groove during the course of the event?
It was definitely challenging to find a groove, but we had some laps where we ran to lap, I think it was lap 10 at one point, all green. So it was definitely challenging to find a groove and get in a rhythm. But it was really good once, we had the track position. So it was easy to find the groove, but definitely challenging at the same time because of all the cautions falling every 5 or 6 laps. So definitely challenging, but really fun for sure.
An emotional win when we were down there in Victory Lane on Friday night. And I know for you been asked this question all year, when are you going to win? It's been second. And obviously that's not bad, right? You're leading the championship, but I'm sure you were tired of hearing that question. So the weight's lifted now. Did you ever doubt yourself going into maybe, is this ever going to happen? Or am I just going to be consistent and not going to win this year?
No, I definitely didn't doubt myself or my team that we were going to get a win this year. It was just a matter of time and when it was going to happen, just because, we've had 4 seconds in a row this year. We've qualified on the pole twice now. We've led laps in every race. So I knew that the win was going to come eventually. It was just going to take time and take time for all the cards to line up perfect. And definitely didn't doubt Bruce Cook and everyone that they were going to bring me a fast car every weekend. It was just a matter of time and when it was going to happen.
Chris mentioned a moment ago, you're the championship point leader. I hate to talk about championship runs in the month of June, still fairly early in the year, but is that something you look at as a young driver running for a championship? You got a 24-point cushion going to Sonoma this weekend.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Obviously, we don't want to focus on it too much right now, but at the same time, you kind of got to keep an eye on it to make sure that we're doing everything right. And it just comes down to being consistent and just having good finishes and having a clean race and bringing the car home in one piece. So definitely keeping an eye on the championship point lead, and having 24-point lead now kind of is a little bit more comfortable and relaxing a little bit. But at the same time, you got to stay at it and stay, like I said, having good finishes and staying out front.
Before we get to Sonoma this weekend, have to ask you about your relationship with Ron Hornaday. Obviously, we talked in Victory Lane about how instrumental he's been in your career so far, but how did you two even get paired together? Obviously, we know Ron's accolades on the NASCAR national side of things, but for him to put his faith in you and for you to link up with Ron, I mean, how did that get started and what's it been like here? And obviously, it's come to fruition with a victory.
Yeah, so I was 12 years old and I went to go get a dirt modified. My dad actually got in contact with Ron's daughter. And so I went to Mooresville to meet them and buy the modified from them and went racing. And Ron come to one of my races and he said that he's seen something in me. And kind of ever since then, he's just been a big mentor to me. And then about 3 years ago, I moved in with Ron's daughter and started working with them and just living at their house and just learning everything I could. And so ever since then, it's just kind of been a big family deal just because I live with them. I see them every day. So they've kind of invited me into their family and I've just very, very thankful for them. And I couldn't do it without them for sure.
And Hornaday was in our broadcast booth for much of the broadcast on Saturday afternoon. What was his message to you post race?
He was so I was in Victory Lane and he looked at me and he says, I've won a lot of races in my career, I've won championships, but I've never cried in Victory Lane. So him saying that to me kind of gave me cold chills because a Hall of Famer, top 75 NASCAR driver saying that to me was just very special. And, him having that relationship with me is just very cool. And I couldn't thank him enough and thank the whole Hornaday family enough for allowing me, like I said, to come into their family and treat me as one of their own.
It was fun to listen to while I was down on pit road, Ron in the broadcast booth, and then that penalty happened and he he had some choice words. He wasn't happy, but said, you know what? Youngsters make mistakes. I get it. He's like, let's see what he could do. And then sure enough, late in the goings, he wanted to leave the broadcast booth because he could see what was going on and you driving through the field. So that was really good stuff. All right, we got Sonoma this weekend. So back-to-back road courses. Does that help, coming off a road course and getting kind of back in that swing of things? Because we started the year with so many ovals to now go to another road course in an iconic place like Sonoma?
Definitely keeps, the rhythm thing going, like we talked about, going to another road course this weekend. And it's really easy on the guys, staying out here in California, working on the car, same car that we raced at Portland, we're going to race at Sonoma. So definitely keeps everyone's jobs a little easier going back to back on the road course. So, and especially when the car's in one piece, so that makes it a lot easier. But definitely looking forward to Sonoma. We were really good there last year. We led some laps. We had a shot to win at the end of the race. So definitely looking forward to going there. And Ron Hornaday, obviously, he showed me a picture the other day and said, are you ready to go road course racing? It was a picture of him on 2 wheels at Sonoma on the top of the hill. So he has a lot of laps there. So definitely can rely on him and ask him questions. And obviously Bruce Cook and all the guys will bring me a really fast car. So looking forward to going there. And hopefully we have the same success as we did Portland.
Yeah, you mentioned you were a contender for most of the race last year, involved in a late race incident. I think many were. There was that late race pileup. What was the big takeaways, though, for you in learning about these cars on that racetrack that you can maybe apply to Saturday?
Last year was my first road course race in a stock car at Sonoma. So it was definitely challenging, having very little practice, very little qualifying, going straight to the race. So last year at Sonoma, it was just all about learning for me and learning the track, learning how these stock cars drive on a road course, just because they are big and heavy. And, you have an H pattern shifter. So that was definitely challenging, but going back there is definitely going to be a little easier for me this year, just because I know the track. We were really good there, obviously, last year. So definitely going to be a little easier, but still challenging, just because there's going to be a big field. I think there's 30 cars entered this year. So big field at Sonoma, a lot of experienced drivers going to be in the field, but definitely going to be really, really fun.
Incredible stuff. Yeah, looking forward to it this weekend. Have to ask you, big picture, looking ahead. Obviously, we go back to more short tracks. Obviously, we go end the year at Phoenix like we always do. Is there a track coming up on the schedule you've got circled, maybe that you did preseason going into this year, that says, okay, I can make something happen here and here, or this suits my driving style? Well, where does Landen Lewis like to run over the course of the year?
Definitely Sonoma's. That's obviously one. Portland and Sonoma was really one I was looking forward to all year, because I like road course racing, and we've been really good on the road courses. So definitely Sonoma. Looking forward to going back to Phoenix. We had a shot to win there earlier in the year. So there's definitely a couple tracks that I'm looking forward to going back to. Phoenix is definitely one, just because it's so much fun crossing on the apron. There's definitely multiple grooves on that track. So looking forward to going back to Phoenix for sure.
Final question for you. You are what, 17 years old? Still
Yes.
Relatively young. What's life like away from the racetrack? Hobbies, what do you do when you're not looking and driving at race cars?
When I'm not at the racetrack, I work on legend cars with Joe Ryan Race Cars, the team that I race for in the legend cars. So I work at the shop, work with kids, do a lot of driver coaching with the younger kids, and help them, pursue their dreams, and hope to have them in racing in the ARCA series one day or something like that. So when I'm not at the track, I'm helping kids with driver coaching, or at the shop with all the guys, Bruce Cook, and then working on legend cars too.
So still all racing.
Yes, racing is definitely life for me.
Yeah, I didn't hear any like golf, basketball, video games. No, good for you.
I like the outdoors. I like going
Okay.
hunting. I like fishing. I like doing that when I'm not involved in racing at all. So that's something that I like doing outside of racing, but mostly racing is life for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good life to have.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, big picture as well, too. Where would you like to, I don't know, see your schedule evolve to? I mean, would you like to come over, run some East races? Obviously, ARCA Menard series on the national schedule. Would that be something you'd be interested in as well?
I'd be interested in anything, honestly. Racing, if I can be in anything every day, I'd love to do it. But obviously, going to East would be really fun. Running a truck race would be really fun. There's definitely a lot of things I would love to do. Just obviously money and time and finding the right people. So that it all involves in that. But hopefully we can run a couple more East races this year, or run a truck race this year.
Yeah, and a win helps, right? It opens the eyes, it opens the doors to those opportunities. So, Landen, congratulations, dude. It was so cool to be down there. It was nice to meet you this weekend.
Yes.
Best of luck at Sonoma, man. You're on a roll and looking good so far in 2023.
Thank you guys for having me, and have a great day, and hopefully talk soon.
Appreciate it. That's Landen Lewis, the big Portland winner, getting ready to head out back to California at Sonoma Raceway here this weekend with the ARCA West Series. Coming up next, we'll take a look at other big storylines and races coming up in the week of racing ahead. That's next on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering.
Whelen Engineering, a global leader in the emergency warning industry, designs and manufactures reliable and powerful warning lights, white illumination lighting, sirens, controllers, and warning systems for the automotive, aviation, and mass notification industries worldwide. Whelen products are designed, sourced, and manufactured in America and tested on site to meet the toughest industry standards. Whelen Engineering, manufactured in America for over 70 years. We never left, and we're here to stay.
Welcome back into NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Whelen Engineering. Kyle, the kid is going places. Landen Lewis has all the momentum in the world when it comes to this season. Obviously, his corner with Ron Hornaday, not a bad guy to have in your corner, but the sky's the limit, and I think we're going to have a really good showdown for the championship. Sean Hingorani's not going to go away in that Venerini entry, but you heard it from him. The momentum is there as we go to another favorite racetrack of his this weekend, Sonoma.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is confidence. He raced there last year, part of his part-time schedule in 2022, only competed in a handful of races, but Sonoma was one of those events. He competed at the front of the field for most of the event. It was a late race pileup that relegated him to 14th in the running order, but that didn't reflect or doesn't reflect on the day that he and his team had out there. So he knows the racetrack. He has the confidence from what he learned there last year. And obviously, like you mentioned, all the momentum and confidence in the world after the start of the season that he has had, coming off a win, and then all those second place finishes leading up to the win. So he's going to be strong this weekend. But like you mentioned, it's going to be another tough field, 30 cars and a couple of Xfinity series. I think there might be a Cup driver or two in the race on Saturday afternoon as well. So it's going to be stacked.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. Sonoma this weekend again for the General Tire 200. So back-to-back ARCA West events here in the month of June. 1.99 mile road course, of course, wine country, beautiful part of the country there in Northern California. It's going to be a jam-packed weekend with the Cup Series in town as well as the Xfinity Series. So for the Xfinity Series and the ARCA guys, that's pretty nice. They don't have to go too far staying out on the West Coast, although the Cup guys had to travel from St. Louis area over the weekend. What do you think? The series first visited there back in 1969. Long history with West at Sonoma, of course, formerly K&N East or K&N West was there, but it's a good site for racing. And you mentioned it, Landen raced in it last year. It was a good battle there at the end too with a lot of our series regulars. So do you think he can repeat on the heels of his win at Portland?
It's going to be tough. As much as confidence as he has, as much momentum as he has, you look at the names in the list or in the race: the Cole Custers, the Sammy Smiths, Ryan Preece, Parker Retzlaff, Riley Herbst. It's going to be difficult because those drivers know that racetrack as well, and it wouldn't. Most of them are also pulling double duty, or at least double duty throughout the entire weekend. So it's going to be hard. But he was up toward the front last year, and the field last year was stacked as well, being that it was on a Cup truck weekend along with the ARCA Menards West. So it was a triple again, but with the trucks. We'll see. I hate to say no, because then he'll go out and lead every lap on Saturday afternoon, but it's going to be a good race. How about that?
Yeah, and he even talked about it too in the interview about what you learn with some of those guys like the Cole Custers out on the racetrack. I mean, to have Ryan Preece out there too as well. Yeah. Do you like the fact that some of these guys will run the road courses in the ARCA West or ARCA East or even the ARCA Menard Series, for that matter, the guys on the national schedule to gain experience? Because if you're Cole Custer, do you really need any more momentum after a thrilling Xfinity win there in Portland last weekend?
No. He has momentum, but again, it's a different racetrack, and the Xfinity Series has never been out to Sonoma. So, he has limited track time there. You only go out there once a year when the Cup cars went there, when he was in the Cup Series. So, probably not a whole lot of laps around that racetrack compared to most of the facilities that we go to over the course of the season. So, I mean, any seat time's good seat time. So there's a bunch of drivers are going to get some extra this weekend.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to watch. Wine Country this weekend for the ARCA West Series. General Tire 200 kicking off NASCAR weekend out in Sonoma. Rick, before we go, I know there's a lot of local racing going on, but let's talk about quickly the Wheel and Modified Tour. NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour back in action after a week off. Seekonk 150 at Seekonk Speedway. The championship battle, right? Ron Silk, a 3-point lead. It is tight, I think, within 5 drivers there at the top. What do you think going into this one? We talk about short tracks versus the bigger tracks, and we've already had Riverhead and Lee, but what do you think about this one?
Yeah, 5 different winners in the first 5 races of the season. We're going to a track that the Tour has not been to since 2019. Doug Coby was the winner there the last time we raced there. Obviously, a lot has changed in the last 4 years, especially for Doug and who he's driving for, obviously, now with Tommy Baldwin. So I like that pairing, going to Seekonk. That team with Tommy has run well with other drivers in other series and tours at Seekonk over the last 4 years. And I think if you put Doug in that car, who's a proven winner and an obvious multi-time champion, they're going to be hard to beat. But never count out the Justin Bonsignors, Austin Beers, John McKennedy. All the regulars are going to be there. I think Matt Hirschman may be entered. We'll see. You never know with big money where he'll show up, but if he shows up, he'll give Doug a run for his money, no doubt. But the short track swing, as we call it here for the modifieds, continuing. Monadnock, Lee, and now Seekonk as they get ready to go in a couple weeks' time at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. They're kind of super speedway of the year.
Yeah, so busy time for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. That race on Saturday against Seekonk 150 at Seekonk. Good to see that track back on the schedule. Rick, let's look ahead to this weekend on the local level. Obviously, we've got on the Flow Racing dial weekly racing from anywhere and everywhere on the NASCAR sanctioned tracks, including Hickory, Langley. We talk about South Boston, but what's the plan for Stafford? I know we're starting to get close to the summer months when you guys get busy as well. What's the plan for Friday?
Yeah, every Friday night we're in racing race mode. Limited late models have an extra distance special event this weekend or this Friday night. Kids night, just kind of a regular show this week to start the month of June. Don't want to go too late and start too early because school is still in session here, and then we'll jump into a lot of big shows coming up here late June and throughout the month of July. But should be a good event after being rained out a week ago. Teams have had the opportunity to kind of reset after some early race incidents. We've had a couple drivers get banged up, some minor bumps and bruises. They've been able to heal, so should be good to go with full fields this Friday night.
You can watch Stafford on Flow just like you can each and every Friday from Stafford Speedway. And if that's not your thing, there's plenty of other stuff going on as well. Indiana Midget Week for the USAC.
Yep.
National Midgets rolling through Indiana. You're probably wondering why we haven't mentioned our good buddy and MRN colleague Jeff Striegel's Berlin Speedway. Well, Berlin, as we record this show on Wednesday, has the big money in the bank with the star-studded field that it always gets. Carson Hocevar, Derek Nealon getting off the spotter stand into a late model. Of course, you talk about your Ty Majeski's and things like that. Tons of good action going on today. So, of course, we'll talk about it next week. But, Jeff, we didn't forget about you. Hopefully you're having a good day here out at the racetrack there in Michigan this week. And other than that, man, tons going on the dial. Of course, NASCAR out in Sonoma. Kyle will reconvene once again next week and break it all down.
I look forward to it. It's one of my favorite portions of the year where everybody is in action. All the tracks are open. All the tours are running. A lot happening. You mentioned Indiana Midget Week. I got hooked. I think it was 2020 when nobody else was seemingly racing. Indiana Midget Week was full head of steam on Flow Racing, one of the only events, during the month of June that year that was in action. And they ran 7-8 nights in a row, I felt like. And I was hooked and have been hooked ever since. So I'll be tuned in for most of the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, All-Stars and all the other dirt series are on Flow. In action as well. The All-Stars actually, I think, are getting ready to kick off Ohio Speed Week, which is one of the grueling schedules for those winged sprint cars. All right, well, that does it for us here on NASCAR Coast to Coast. We want to thank Landen Lewis for joining us on this week's episode, and we'll keep it rolling next week. Thanks to our partners at Whelen Engineering as well for today's broadcast. On the road, in the air, and around the world, Whelen is trusted to be seen, trusted to be heard, and trusted to perform. For Rick, Chris Wilner, producer Pat Jaggers, we'll see you next time on NASCAR Coast to Coast.